Hi, I'm Jocelyn McClurg, books editor of USA Today, and I'm here in New York with actress Gillian Anderson and journalist Jennifer Nadel to talk about their new book, We, A Manifesto for Women Everywhere. Their self-help title offers 9 principles for empowering women in their everyday lives. We're on Facebook Live taking your fan questions. Welcome, Gillian and Jennifer. It's great to have you here today.
Thanks for having us.
Why don't we start by asking how the two of you as friends came together to write this book?
Do you want to take that? Okay. Well, Jennifer and I have known each other for about 10 years, and through that time we've come to realize that we have very similar tools and practices for dealing with life's challenges. And at a certain point over the last couple of years, we decided that we wanted to try and create a handbook for women that included what we boil down to essentially 9 principles, which are universal values and tools that we have found helpful over the years. And
they've kind of been distilled from almost every religion and spiritual practice has these within them. So they've been passed down, and we just have put them together in one place. And what they really do is they take the reader on a journey. It starts with your relationship with yourself, because often in the way we live, we get very alienated. We shave bits of ourselves off. We do a lot of pretending. And you go on a journey to connect with your real self, and then it ends with what we can all do to try and make the world we live in a little kinder.
You know, you write in your introduction that you want to take readers on a path of self-discovery and spiritual awakening. Why do you think women need a book like We? And you also use the good old-fashioned feminist word sisterhood, which was nice to see that. So talk a little bit about what you think the need is for this book for women.
well, so often these days I know a lot of my friends feel a huge amount of pressure in society today to have it all. You know, we're shown on posters that we should look this way, we're told we should buy this, and if we do these things, we will be better, or we will be more perfect, or will appear that we have it all. And that actually, one of the most profoundly healing things that I've experienced is actually to admit to myself and other people that I don't have it all, and that I struggle, and that I find it really hard sometimes. And part of what We is about getting comfortable with ourselves just as we are, and find there's so much, you know, the levels of self-harm are skyrocketing today more than ever before, and depression in women and men, but you know, specifically in women. And so much of that is because of the pressures that we feel, you know, that we have to be the perfect mom and the perfect wife and the perfect co-worker, and how liberating it is to learn ways to care for ourselves. We're so used to, you know, learning and growing up with the fact that we have to take care of everybody else. Mm-hmm. But very often we lose our resilience when we're constantly focused on everybody else. And in this book we talk about ways that we can practice self-care.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, as women, we often put ourselves last on the list. You know, to be a good woman, you're meant to caretake, and looking after ourselves can feel indulgent or selfish. But in fact, it's really necessary, and you know, that's where, if you want to be radical, that's where it starts, with taking care of yourself, because otherwise it's impossible to have the resilience that's needed to do everything that we're expected to do in a day. And also, we don't model to other people that we're real. You know, we're real, functioning, 3-dimensional beings that have bodily functions and hormones and all sorts of things that we are encouraged by society to pretend that we don't have. And we all need to start getting honest. And you know, you asked about the motivation, and one of the motivations for me was that, you know, as a feminist and as a woman, I've fought for 50% of everything, but the world of work is designed predominantly around a male workforce. So, you know, we climb up to that position, we get our place, and it doesn't fit us, and it doesn't serve us as women, and I don't think it serves most men, because most of us nowadays have caring responsibilities, or are parents and want to spend time with our children, and the way we're working is insane and unnecessary.
You know, one of the things I found so interesting about your book, you're both very, very candid. That there's, for people who haven't had a chance to read it yet, snippets that you each tell about your own lives and how it relates to your principles. And I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit each of you about some of the struggles that you've dealt with and that you talk about in your book, both personally and professionally.
Yeah. Should I go?
No, go ahead.
Right. So one of the things that I talk about is suffering from burnout and depression. I was a network journalist in the UK, and I had a job that I absolutely loved, but I was also a single mother, and I had two modes. I was either working or mothering, mothering. And one day I woke up and I just couldn't go on. I just could not go on. And I was called by our news desk and asked to go to Downing Street, and I looked at my kids and I couldn't leave them. I just couldn't leave them. And the next day I couldn't leave them, and the days after that. And then I was diagnosed with burnout and depression, and had to spend a lot of time going inside, because I had been conditioned to think that I would feel good when I got the job, when I got the kids, when I got the whatever. But actually that when then thinking was a lie. It's a vanishing horizon. Just as you think, okay, I've got there now I'm going to be happy, the horizon moves, because there's always something more that we could be doing. So what that depression did for me was it gave me the chance, well, it forced me to let go of those externals and really go inside and find out what really mattered and what really has abiding value.
Gillian?
And in the book, I mean, interested in striking a balance between what to reveal and what not to reveal. And a couple of the things which I felt comfortable with are, during the period of time that I was working on the X-Files, I went through about a year of daily panic attacks, and most of that was because I'd spent so much of my life up until that point running full speed ahead towards something career, and not dealt with a lot of stuff from my childhood that needed properly to be dealt with and for me to get honest about. And then I've also been very honest about my struggle with parenting, and that sometimes I find, I'm so used to hearing that I should and have to be a particular kind of parent, that it's, that baking and cooking and all of those things are what real parenthood is for women, and I have struggled with just the basics of noise control with two young boys, and just the day-to-day stresses. And I'm in a situation where I'm fortunate enough to be able to have a nanny, and still, even with a nanny, I struggle. And so I've talked quite openly about that fact.
Well, why don't we start taking some of the smart questions we have from readers and fans. And this is from Mara, who says, "Hi, ladies. As someone who has been in therapy from the age of 13, I really enjoyed reading your book. It's hard to struggle with those issues from such a young age, partly because of the mental health stigma. Gillian, I know you're involved in a campaign against the stigma. Can you talk a little bit about that?"
About the campaign? Is
Well,
that
and mental illness, if
yeah.
you want to address that.
I mean, it's interesting because I've never thought about anxiety as being a mental illness, and I participated in a campaign in the UK recently because I was asked to become a part of raising awareness, especially for youth and mental illness in youth, and so I agreed to be a part of that campaign. But it's interesting that I never had included myself in that, in having that label put on me, and it's very much become a label that has been put on me in the last few days in doing press. It's, there's celebrities with mental illness, but it's interesting to just to sit with that and to own the fact. I've never my struggles with anxiety during those years, I actually never really sought help with. I didn't, I was in my early 20s and working insane hours, and just kind of buckled down and dealt with it, and eventually after about a year they ended up passing. And I've never really thought about them in that way. And I have huge compassion and sympathy for people who, Jennifer's been very honest about her clinical depression. And, but it's made me actually, in the process of talking about this and talking openly and getting honest, think about it in a different way and have a whole new level of compassion, because it's something that I've actually become labeled with myself. So.
And I think when you have a mental illness, it's just how you are. You know, similarly, I never thought of depression as that. That was just something that I lived with, and it's only as we start to talk and share our experiences, woman to woman, and that was a lovely question, because one of the things that we can do and that we really hope we'll do is to gather together and read the book, with other women, whether it's co-workers or, a Facebook group or, people that you meet at the school gates, just starting conversations about the things that really matter, because so much of our time we talk about what doesn't matter and then wonder why we feel alienated, isolated, alone, but we haven't been able to really connect because we don't know that it is okay to talk about this stuff, and we can make it okay by doing it.
And your title sort of says that, doesn't it? We.
Yes.
Now, since we're getting personal and candid, here's another question from a reader, Rebecca. Gillian, in a recent interview to promote We, you said that how at home you are depends on your time of the month. This struck a huge chord with me. Do you think there should be more openness surrounding PMS, periods, and menopause?
Absolutely, I do. I mean, we've both been very open about our experiences with perimenopause and menopause. And just this morning we did Dr. Oz and had a big conversation about it. It is something that I think we both believe absolutely needs to become a part of the regular conversation and educated in schools. It's something that is, affects 50% of the population. And so many of my friends have never heard of perimenopause. They may be experiencing symptoms. Well, menopause is a point where we lose our period, where we no longer get our period and we can no longer have children. Up until that point, there's a period of what can be up to 10 years where you can be in perimenopause and you can get a lot of the symptoms that women with menopause get. So you can have hot flashes and night sweats and anxiety and depression and hysteria and all, and I have pretty much experienced all of those things. And a lot of my friends experience some of those symptoms but don't actually know that it is most likely related to their hormones. And so they're either prescribed antidepressants for the anxiety or the depression, or they're told that, that they just have to buckle up and get on with it or whatever it is, but there's not enough education out there for women starting quite early to inform them that actually this is something that you are going to have to contend with. These are the symptoms. This is what you do about it. You go to see this kind of doctor, and also to have doctors who properly prescribe, who properly consider that maybe some of the symptoms are related to hormones and not necessarily a mental illness, or that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and we as women need to really educate each other, because no one, I didn't know what it involved. I had absolutely no idea until it hit me, and it's a really huge deal having to deal with all those hormonal fluctuations. We know about teenagers, but there's another phase in life where hormones can really play havoc, and
one of the things I liked about your book is you talk about the importance of kindness quite a bit, to ourselves and to other women. And can you talk about some of the ways in which people can do that? I mean, you talk about journaling, meditation, gratitude. I mean, there's some very specific sort of tools that you recommend for people in your book that you might want to talk about a little bit.
Yeah, there are. I mean, as we said, the book takes us through these 9 principles, which are really transformative. But before one starts working on them, it's really essential to get the basics in place. The absolute fundamentals are a tiny bit of meditation every day, even if it's just 2 minutes. Just start the habit. You are important enough to set your timer on your phone for 2 minutes and just settle. So that's one. Another is a gratitude list, which is something that we both do. Rather than carrying with you, as we all do, all the bad things and the wrong things that are happening, just pick out 10 good things that have
Every day?
happened every single day, and it's mind altering.
Do you have trouble coming up with 10?
Nope.
No?
To start with, yes, because it's a new habit. You know, we're encouraged, you know, particularly if you think you're intelligent, then you critique life and you can see what's wrong and you can see what needs to be changed. And those are the things that we generally populate our mind with. And what happens is we ignore things, you know, we ignore really basic things like the sky. I mean, how extraordinary is the sky? We can see it at almost any moment, you know, clouds that pass, different colours, the things that come out of the sky. You know, we've had a little bit of a lesson from nature, that white fluttering stuff.
Roof over our heads and heat in our houses in the middle of winter and socks to put on, and there's a lot of things that we can be grateful for.
No matter what, there is, And actually it's normally for me, when I'm in most mental anguish, that trying to find, you know, those diamonds in what feels like the mud of my life are actually what lifts me out of the mud, because they do exist, you know, they coexist with the other stuff that we're struggling with, and, you know, what we focus on grows. So if we look for those little moments of beauty or connection or just things we do have and often take for granted, it can help develop the resilience to deal with the stuff that isn't so great, that we would rather wasn't happening.
But also I think one of the really valuable exercises in the book is about really looking at how we spend our time. Because I think many of us spend our time in ways that actually, if we really step back and look at it, we can see how maybe we're spending a little too much time on our screens, or maybe a little bit too much time doing these things and focusing on things that don't actually bring meaning into our lives. And so it's about getting really honest and clear about that, so we can eke out little bits of extra time in the day when we can do things like pay attention to the sky, or call a loved one, or spend some time meditating, or doing any of those things that actually make us feel good inside, as opposed to many of the things I think a lot of us do that actually make us feel kind of icky. If we've gone on a little shopping binging spree during our lunch hour or whatever it is, or just eaten the third Haagen-Dazs bowl or whatever, you know. So there's lots of exercises and tools in the book for helping people get really clear and honest about their lives, and whether the value that they know that they can have in their lives actually gets acted out, gets manifested, or whether it gets dispersed.
Okay. I thought this was an interesting question from Emma, which is, how do you deal with acquaintances, family or friends who don't support you as you're trying to make positive changes in your life, such as those outlined in We? My family scoffs at any type of self-help.
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is, although, you know, this does have a lot of self-help in it, it also has a lot of politics in it, and what we've really tried to do is combine politics, psychology, and spirituality, things that are often put in their separate compartments. So the first thing you can do is say, I'm actually reading a political book. Because what happens the moment the word self-help is there, it's like put in a little compartment, you know, it's there for when you're in crisis, but this book is, you know, I think we think is much bigger than that. It's about creating a new movement. And you talked a moment ago about kindness, you know, kindness to ourselves, but imagine what it would be like if we used that as a test whenever, you know, we made decisions outside the home, you know, who we vote for, what we choose to buy, how we choose to conduct ourselves with our co-workers. You know, kindness has really gone out of fashion, you know, and, you know, we've become a very me first culture. You know, it's all about me, and it hasn't really served us, you know. We are no happier as a result of the me culture. In fact, we're unhappier as a nation. So, you know, so part of what this book is about is about a we, you know, replacing me with we, and that's a political movement. But also, you know, find the people who do want to work on themselves and lead by example. Lecturing people doesn't seem to work. My sons would say that lecturing is not my best technique when I want to try and persuade them to do something. But, you know, people will notice if you're doing the stuff that's in this book and you're feeling more authentic and happier and more resilient and doing more stuff in the world, people will go, what's up with her? I want a bit of that.
Gillian, do you see the book as political? Could you explain why?
The last chapter of the book is about kindness, and kindness is essentially, we believe, what love looks like when you take it out into the rest of the world. And we, as Jennifer was saying, a lot of our focus is so much on our own little worlds and our own bubbles, and that is having negative repercussions on how the world is functioning or dysfunctioning right now. And so many of us, I think, are starting to feel that we can't necessarily turn to our leaders, our politicians, for answers or to take care of us. And so we're finding that actually maybe we need to take some things into our own hands in order to get some of our needs met as society, and also to be mindful of other people, other cultures, other societies, and how when we start talking about ego and the opposite of that, which is humility, and you start practicing kindness and compassion in your own lives, then one has more of a tendency to reach one's hand out and build bridges instead of walls. And so that's a lot of what we talk about in the book.
Okay. You addressed this a little bit earlier, but from Kelly, Gillian and Jennifer, in your opinion, what poses the greatest challenge for working mothers today?
Thinking that you have to be perfect, I think. And, one of the things that we say in the book is that we'd like the P word, perfectionism, to be banned, because there's no such thing as perfect and there's no such thing as normal. So for me, it's allowing myself to do things badly, not feeling that I have to measure how I'm doing by comparing myself, compare and despair. I only ever compare myself with someone who seems to be doing better than me, not with someone who is struggling more. And also just really thinking, what do I want? What do I really want? Do I want to be with my kids, which is fine, or do I not want to be with my kids? Give yourself permission to parent or to work in whatever way. Don't try and fit yourself into any of the stereotypes, most of which have been made by the men who market goods to us and magazines to us. You don't need to be a stereotype. Be just exactly who you are.
You have thoughts on that?
I thought you said that really well.
Advice for working moms?
Well, I get, the same thing, which is, I think I've beat myself up a lot over the years for, struggling to get on the floor and play Lego, that I can do it for a certain period of time, and then I can feel myself start to panic and think I should be doing something else, my focus should be, so I should be working, I didn't read that today, I should have blah, 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 blah. And actually be okay with the fact that I find that hard. I take my boys to the park, I have fun going to the park, and some days I can be completely free and present, and other days my brain is somewhere else and I can't wait to get out of there, and I know we've got another hour in the park. And I'm so hard on myself about the fact that it's not easy for me. I've got friends who it is easy for, and I've got a lot of friends who also find it difficult, who judge themselves so much on how they think they're meant to parent, and so I guess one of the things that has been really valuable to me is just trusting that I'm doing the best that I can. I really, really try to. I had the same life for a long time. If I'm either on a set, I'm on a plane, or I'm with my kids. I'm on a plane, I'm on a set, I'm on a plane, I'm with my kids, and that has been my life for a long time. And I finally got sick of hearing myself say, this has got to change, this has got to change, and started to take some action to actually elicit that change and to shake things up a bit. But so the time that I do spend with my kids is very concentrated, because I have it in chunks and then I go away. And so the fact that when I have those chunks, I've found it hard sometimes. It's just a really big stick that I get to punish myself with. And so, it's a lot of self-affirmation that, it's okay, and that it is hard, and that I'm doing my best.
And this is where politics comes in as well, because we can't really divorce these things. In the UK, you get up to 52 weeks paid maternity leave, and I find it so shocking. I mean, we're both US citizens as well as, you know, living in England. I find it absolutely shocking that you know, America is alone in the developed world, apart from, I think, Oman and Papua New Guinea, in not providing nationwide paid maternity leave, and nearly 1 in 4 women goes back to work within 2 weeks of giving birth. And yet we all know that the longer a child is able to be with their primary attachment figure, whether that's the mother or the father, you know, the more robust they're going to be psychologically. And yet we have an economic model that doesn't allow for the fact that if they actually want a healthy population, lower crime rates, better health, you actually need to provide an infrastructure that enables people to have kids. And so politics is relevant. It's really, really relevant to how we parent and to what we ask for ourselves. You know, we have a welfare state in the United Kingdom, so just about. So we have, you know, we have healthcare provided, we have schools provided, we have pensions provided, and we have parental leave provided, and that makes it easier to be a parent than I think it is in this country.
We're all going to move. Okay. The word male came up a little while ago, and we have a question from a guy, Don, who says, women around the world are excited to read your book. Are there messages in the book for the male reader?
Absolutely. A lot of the men that we know who have picked up this book have found it very useful and helpful as well. And the fact is that the principles in this book are principles that are based on religions and spiritual practices that have been around for centuries. And we are not experts. All we have done is just condensed them and tools into one place, but they are accessible and helpful and useful to anybody, whether you are female or male.
Okay. From Nashana, is there any advice you would give to help raise confident girls?
You know, it's all about self-esteem. I really, really believe that it is. And, you know, so many girls are struggling with feeling like they're not good enough because they see images of, you know, they see the images on the billboards. And whereas when we were younger, that's been the case, you know, since we were younger ourselves, but now it's everywhere. It's on our individual little home phones that we have that are an extension of ourselves, and so we're just bombarded. Girls are bombarded with images of half-naked, beautiful women, and think that is what they need to aspire to. You know, even the cartoons of girls these days look skinnier than anorexic. You know, there's so much imagery out there that says this is what you should look like, and so it's and as the result of that, you know, self-esteem levels and self-esteem is lowering, and self-harm is skyrocketing. I think the statistic is that between 2007 and 2014, self-harm tripled in just those 7 years, and I think a lot of it has to do with social media. But as Jennifer said before, we're often comparing how we feel on the inside with how other people look on the outside, and because everybody posts the good days, the you know, the beautiful pictures and the perfect holidays, and it appears that everybody has these perfect lives. So many young girls feel that they fall short of that, and so is as much about encouraging girls to be happy with whoever they are, however they look, whether or not they have makeup on, whether or not they're wearing the latest outfit, and just really practicing enough self-care and self-affirmation that they get to a place of feeling really good in themselves as they are, without having to have all of the other crutches that we're told are what really make us important, or really special, or really beautiful, or really in, or really hot, or, you know, it's
so
a lot
we
of
need
pressure.
to teach our girls that it's what we are on the inside. It's not about outsides. It's not about what we have, own, or how we look. It's about who we are in our essence, and that who we are is enough. And it's really natural when you hit a painful period, and most of us do in adolescence, to try and control the one thing you can control. So then we start controlling or trying to control what we eat or how we look, as if that will magically then make everything else in our life feel okay. If only I was thinner, if only I was this, or if only I was that, then I wouldn't need to feel the way I feel. But the other thing we all need to learn as a society is that feeling bad is a natural part of being human, and if we can allow ourselves to feel our sadness, our anger, the whole palette of emotions, like clouds on a, in the sky, they pass. Those emotions will pass if we allow ourselves to experience them, but if we try and block them and control them, we can stay stuck in them, and that's one of the things that can cause depression and self-harm.
Everybody has a bad day.
Absolutely, yeah.
Why don't we take a question or two from Facebook, which is coming in, and here's a fan who's already ready for a sequel. Patrice is asking if you were planning to do a follow-up book.
Ask us next week. Ask us next week when the press tour is done.
Is that a possibility?
Well, we can definitely do one for men, I think.
Yes.
I think
men
need
Go for it. Go for it.
What would that be called? Them?
Yeah, them.
Yeah, you. No, joke.
Okay.
It's the same.
Anika was asking, which of the 9 principles was the most difficult for each of you to implement? Or as you're going on, on a daily basis?
Well, it's actually quite funny because we've got the opposites.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciate and enjoy practicing acceptance and struggle with joy.
And I really struggle with acceptance because I like to think that I can mend any problem. Give me a problem or show me something that's not working and I can make it better. And just accepting that there are some things that I can't change is really difficult, or that I just have to let things take their course. And I love joy. Joy is my favourite. So, yeah, we complement each other.
So, how do you embrace joy if it's just not your natural instinct to do so?
I really, really, really have to work hard at it, and part of that is about, I know that when I focus on what I am grateful for, I am more likely to experience joy. I know that when I'm in a creative process, I'm more likely to experience joy. But where I struggle is in making that time, actually giving myself the gift of time in order to be creative outside of the work that I do. So it's simple things. It's really something easy to implement, but I have a really hard time doing that. I feel like I'm wasting my time. I should be doing something else. I should be educating myself in some way about something, or working on a script, or memorizing lines, or whatever it is. And so I struggle to create that creative space for myself.
We've had a few people ask if you could give some tips for how to do some of the things in your book, and a couple people have asked, and Wendy is one. What tips do you have for someone who's new to meditation?
Start small, start really, really small. When I started meditating, it felt like I was putting myself in a torture chamber because I would sit still and then all these voices, you should have done this, you should have done that, why did you do that, oh no, oh my goodness, you need to be thinner, all of that stuff would just come piling into my head, and I didn't want to do that. But then a friend said, just start with 2 minutes. So that's how I started. I started with 2 minutes a day, and everyone can find 2 minutes. And I obliged myself to sit still for 2 minutes with myself. And now I try and do 20 minutes, and it's a source of joy. And I could not have imagined that. You can't run before you can crawl. So start by crawling, and you'll find a way. And there are very practical techniques. That's one of the things that's in the book.
And I know someone else had asked if you had any specific thoughts on journaling. This person had said she finds it hard to keep a journal going. It's sort of, you start out doing it and then all of a sudden it just falls away. Do you have any tips on keeping a journal?
Well, my main tip is that the most important thing, don't set yourself. Again, we set ourselves, I've got to write every day, and if I don't write every day, then I'm failing even at journaling. But actually, the gratitude list, if all you write in your journal are 10 things every day that you found that you're grateful for, that you have that you're grateful for, that you experience, that's great. So just start there and then let the other things expand.
Do it on airplanes?
On airplanes, but also I started to I used to write a journal every day for decades, I think, and then at some point I just stopped, and part of it is being in the public eye and being worried about something being found, and a lot of it is my own pressure that I put on myself about writing perfectly, that it has to be poetic in some way, or I have to get all the details down, and somebody suggested recently that that it's disposable, that I spend 15 minutes stream of consciousness, and that I actually write it on paper that can either be burned or disposable paper that can be flushed down the toilet. And there's something incredibly freeing about that. One, because the stream of consciousness is just, it's no judgment, it's just the hand moving, but so much truth about my real state of mind. At that time, I find out things about myself that I had no idea in my busy day, or even that didn't come through in my meditation, that thoughts or feelings or anger or, a lot of feelings end up coming up, and it's just another way to get perspective on what's going on inside, and, that's another way to be honest with oneself about one's true
That
self.
sounded like an X-Files episode. Flushing it down the toilet or writing on disappearing paper. It's back to men, and maybe this would be something you can put in your sequel. We have a question from Franca. What advice would you give to women whose male partners won't join them in activist work, who see feminist activism as a women's issue only?
Bless them. We don't need to get anyone else involved. So often as women we're looking for validation outside of ourselves, and we want everyone to come with us, and if it can't be a group thing, it doesn't matter. Do it for you, do it for you, do it for the woman who can't do it for the woman on the other side of the world who has absolutely no rights. Don't worry about them, just do it.
Let's see what else we want. I think we have just a few minutes left, and some readers had some questions, and USA Today had some questions that are entertainment related. Is that okay if we pop them out there?
I'd rather stick to the book if that's okay.
All right,
Can it be
a couple minutes at the
entertainment
end.
book related?
Well, one of my questions is, because you've also written a trilogy of fun books that have a sort of paranormal theme, and I wondered if there's any talk about that maybe coming to television or movies, and if you might maybe want to play Caitlin, your main character?
No, I wouldn't like to play Caitlin, my main character, but there is a chance that it will come to television near you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And we've had a number of fans who've just asked if you could talk a little about X-Files, the reboot, and whether there's going to be another season, if you could tell us anything about that.
Unfortunately, I can't tell you anything about that, but thank
Okay.
you for asking.
And we've also had a number of readers asked if your book's going to be published in other countries, and interestingly, we've had people write in from other countries and asking if it's going to be available.
Yeah, Italy just bought the rights, Holland, Germany, and we hope that it will spread.
All right. Let's see if there's anything else from Facebook that we haven't quite caught here. The only other thing I think we really haven't covered is, this is an interesting question from a young woman, which is from Jida. Thank you so much for all the work you both do and for being role models for women. My question is, what advice do you have for feminist millennials who live in closed-minded societies? Now, that's a tough one to answer quickly, but do you have any thoughts on that?
I think the first thing is to try and connect with other women who feel the same way, and to know what your truth is. So often we abandon our truth, as I said before, to fit in, and start by knowing your truth, and start by just looking for tiny, tiny little ways of asserting that truth outside of yourself. But there's no necessity to put yourself in danger. It is just incrementally look for ways to bring your politics into your daily life.
And I guess, the cover of this book is a circle, and it's also rings. And our hope has been that women will create circles to either work through this book or discuss some of the issues that are coming up for them, and to start to discuss how they can be of service. They can put some of these principles into practice in the outside world. And so I guess part of it is just finding women who are interested in having that conversation, and even if it's a conversation that just happens between two people, it's that in and of itself is something and valuable, and will help you to feel like you're not alone in what, you know, in your closed society and what you're going through and what you have to suppress.
It's interesting you said that, because there's a question that came in from Facebook that also deals with sort of the question of feeling alone, which is, from Hannah, how does one find their voice and courage to speak up against daily sexism in an environment where you're the only woman or the girl and you feel that no one will listen to you?
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough when we both worked in male-dominated industries, and it's particularly tough when you're starting out because you want to get on. So again, you know your truth and save up those moments. And you know, if you are in a more junior position, find someone else that you can share that with, or write. You know, writing is a great way of truth-telling, right outside the workplace.
What kind of writing do you mean?
Well, you know, find other women online. I mean, again, as Gillian said, you know, find other women. You know, we've got a website, wewomeneverywhere.org.
Yeah, talk about your website a little bit.
But can I just say that it may be, in part, it may become a situation that just becomes intolerable. You know, if she's interested in starting to look at to get honest with the reality of the situation, and if she's particularly uncomfortable in that situation, then maybe it'll get to a point where she actually realizes that in order to honor herself, she can't tolerate it anymore, and that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I found when I experienced a lot of sexism early on was that I was so eager to please that I didn't put up a "that's not okay" sign, and I didn't need to do it verbally, but I didn't carry myself in a way that said, you know, what are you talking about? I didn't need, you know, it doesn't always have to be verbalized, but people read things, people read our body language, and it's a form of bullying. You know, sexism is really about power, and it's about being pushed around. So if you are able to carry yourself and conduct yourself in a way that just says this is not okay, even without picking a fight, things start to change.
Well, we have a few minutes. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the website and how people can get on it and how it works? And
well, the
what kind of
website
interaction
www.wewomeneverywhere.org, and right now it's a pretty basic website that allows us to communicate to the people who are interested about what's going on in the news, what's going on in the book. But also it's a place where women have started to send in their thoughts and experiences of working on the book, and we've been encouraging women to set up circles, and so some women have written in to report that they have indeed set up circles, and they're starting that conversation. And hopefully eventually through the website we'll be able to start a community. We're currently looking for sponsorship and funding in order to be able to set up a community so that it can be almost like, my fantasy is that it's almost like an altruistic Facebook page where people can communicate and post things that are more about their place in the work that they're doing and being of service, and what they're doing in the rest of the world, what they're doing for themselves, and less about materialistic things and the other things that we often decide to focus on because it feels better.
Can you tell readers how the circles work, and as you describe them in the book, how do you go about doing that?
So find another woman, or post on your Facebook page, anyone want to do it with me. You know, there are many good uses. We've talked about the harm that social media can do, but we can also use it for, you know, to start something really constructive. And we're putting some suggestions on the website for kind of ground rules, confidentiality, talking in the eye, not giving advice, and join together with other women and read it through, maybe a chapter at each meeting, and then do the exercises and come back and feed in how it's working for you, share your experience, and have a conversation about really trying to shift those things that don't work in our lives as women, so that we can start, you know, joining together. As Gillian says, you know, this is a chain, woman to woman, arm to arm, and you know, right now politically there's a lot happening here, and a lot of women are saying, you know, what can I do? What can I do? I'm worried, you know, these rights that I fought so long for are now under threat. And one of the things that women can do is find another woman and join together with her and just start those conversations and develop the resilience, because it isn't enough just to go on one march. It's going to be a lot more called on.
And it's sort of what you two have done is co-writing this book. Started
Yes.
the conversation.
Just came
Yeah.
from a conversation,
Yeah.
so who knows?
You know what? We're out of time, and that's a perfect place to end. And thank you both so much for being here. It was really wonderful to talk to you, and we wish you the best of luck with your book, We.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for having us.
Thank you.
Good.